Hello, welcome back. We're at it again. This time I'm a little bit more prepared. I have a script, and unfortunately, I couldn't find near as much as I wanted to when researching this topic. So I did a little bit of my brows, and I started my eyes, and I added primer. I remembered primer. So yeah, if you guys are new here, I am Dino Dare. I am a Twitch streamer, and I do little get ready with me's prior to starting stream, so it just allows me to do my makeup and talk about subjects that I genuinely enjoy. And the subjects that I've been gravitating towards here lately is movies and their production, their we'll say their influence on the cast, what they went through, tidbits about the movie. And so today we're talking about Queen of the Damned. We talked about Interview with a Vampire on my last Get Ready With Me, and I just felt like this was necessary. I personally enjoyed Queen of the Damned. However, I do recognize it as not the best film in existence. Let's be honest. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, the movie was directed by Michael Reimer. It started production in September of 2000. It was primarily filmed in Melbourne, Australia, and it ended production in early 2001. So, if any of you know Queen of the Damned, I'm sure you already know that it was not received very well. Its ratings were rather low, and watching it, obviously, its production value is a little low, considering the time and how much CGI they used. However, we're not here for the movie when watching it. We're here for the music. And we'll get to that in a moment. The ratings for Queen of the Damned was a 5.3 out of 10 on IMDb. I always say it backwards for some reason. 17% on Rotten Tomatoes and 30% on Metacritic. So, not the greatest, unfortunately. Like I said, it was primarily filmed in Melbourne, Australia. However, it was filmed in Los Angeles, California a little bit as well. And I would honestly compare this movie to Repo the Genetic Opera. Now, again, that is a cult classic. It's a really enjoyable movie. Was its production value the greatest? No. But again, we're here for the music. We're not here for the movie. And so, that being said, Jonathan Davis, lead singer of Korn, was brought in to compose and write music for the film. Just gotta find my brushes here real quick. I'm going for the poster of the movie. So I want to have a little like teal moment. I'm heavily inspired by that. So that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, Jonathan Davis, he was brought on with Richard Gibbs. Richard Gibbs is known for conducting the music for Dr. Dolittle and Big Mama's House. I saw like briefly he was on a lot of Eddie Murphy movies. And then he orchestrated one of my favorite movies of all time, 10 Things I Hate About You.
You're not afraid of me, are you?
Afraid of you? Why would I be afraid of you?
Well, most people are.
Well, I'm not.
Well, maybe you're not afraid of me, but I'm sure you've thought about me naked, huh?
I thought he did a good job in that movie. So, that being said, Jonathan Davis had not done anything like this prior to the movie, but he expressed interest in expanding his horizons. And so I concentrated a little too hard. He was a willing student. Richard talked highly of him when it came to that, and they ended up bringing on a stellar musical cast. Like, all the big names in metal and the goth scene. They brought on Wayne Static, Chester Bennington, David Draymond, and Marilyn Manson. And if you are into that scene, like myself, being practically raised in Gothic subculture, it resonated with me in that industrial metal, like badass style music. And obviously, as mentioned before, that's what gravitated, I'd say, most any one of us, maybe you watching, to this movie. I mean, I can think of one song immediately, sang by Wayne, that just hits, and it takes me back to my goth clubbing days, you know? And he did an amazing job. Like I said, he had never done this type of thing before, so Jonathan had learned scoring during production. And like I said, Richard felt he did very well. When they were doing the music, which actually they were brought on prior to casting for the movie. The music was started, and then the movie was framed around the music. And Michael Reimer requested that they only take inspiration from this story. So no other outside elements. And Jonathan mentioned, he's like, well, yeah, think about it. You know, you've been alive for 700 years. Imagine how life would be at that point. You're lonely. You know, everyone around you dies, and you can't. Right? So, obviously, that was a big note in what he was trying to do. Now, that being said, if you are unfamiliar with Queen of the Damned, it is a sequel to Interview with a Vampire. Very loosely based. Obviously, none of the same characters. Stuart Townsend is to play Lestat, and then you have Aaliyah, of course, playing Akasha, the vampire of all vampires. And he comes back from a long sleep, and he is awoken by metal music, and he decides that he wants to be a rock star and essentially expose vampires. And he calls for this concert in Death Valley. Now, the production team were heavily inspired by Burning Man, and so that's where they wanted to do it. They wanted to do it in Death Valley. And for that scene, they needed 3,000 extras to make it appear as though it's a big freaking concert. And they anticipated this to be one of their hardest parts of filming. But it actually turned out that they really enjoyed it, and it was one of the easiest because the extras were so into what they were doing that they actually started learning the songs. Well, when you're there for 3 days, 12 hours each day, I'd imagine you probably picked up the songs. But they didn't act tired. They rocked out for 3 days and just had a ton of fun, and it made the job of the production team a lot easier. Now, I briefly mentioned Aaliyah. We are not going to go into Aaliyah's story. We're not going to deep dive into that, but I will briefly mention what happened and what her roles were as far as this movie goes. Now, she actually worked with a dialect coach and her acting coach for weeks, just so that she could get her movement right as she is depicted in the book, and then so that she could have that ancient Egyptian accent. And she had mentioned that she'd always wanted to do this type of role. She actually was interviewed by Jay Leno, I think, and she had said she wanted to play that dark, mystery, evil fantasy role. And the only other acting that she had done prior was Death to Romeo, I believe is what it's called, and that was more of a twist on her own character, right? She didn't feel like that was much acting in her eyes. She wanted to do something that was out of her realm. And so she was very known for her work. Obviously, Aaliyah at the time was an upcoming musical artist. She actually was working on her 3rd album when she took on the role of Akasha. She actually went to Australia to film and was actually producing songs there as well. She was going to the studio and building that album while also acting also. You get it. That was something of notoriety when people talked about Aaliyah. They talked about her hard work and how determined she was and how she came to work every day on time and ready to kill it. And I think that's really cool, and that's unfortunate that her life was cut short. She actually died in August of 2001 at 22 years old. Going back to what I was saying, in her filming and recording, she actually would fly to Australia for a few days, do her acting, and then she would actually fly back to New York, where she accepted 2 awards to the VMAs. Filming was finished in early 2001. At this point, the only thing that needed to be done was some CGI and some dialogue that needed to be replaced. Now, unfortunately, because Aaliyah passed in August of 2001, she was unable to re-record the dialogue because her dialogue was so difficult to hear in certain instances because of her Egyptian accent. Her brother actually recorded those lines. The studio felt that he had a similar tone to his voice the way that she did, and so if you watch it, you might be able to notice the difference. The cast had nothing but nice things to say about Aaliyah. Of course, like I said, they said that she was a hard worker and determined and willing to do whatever she could to make the film better, because she was so proud of what she was doing. Berry blue. Okay. I need some shimmer. Shimmer, shimmer. Shimmer, shimmer, shimmer. Shimmer, shimmer. Shimmer, shimmer, shimmer. Shimmer, shimmer. Yeah. Oh my fucking. This hair. I got this like little anime thing going on. Do we think it's cute? I can see it. It's making me cross-eyed. Okay. I need some like blue and green in here. To really shine. Okay, that's better. I like that. Okay. Getting back to it. I want to... Yeah, we're good. Okay. Getting back to it. Obviously, I talked about Anne Rice's perception of Interview with the Vampire. So, I wanted to talk about her take on Queen of the Damned. And obviously, she heavily criticized Interview with the Vampire prior to its release because she didn't like Tom Cruise. And so she obviously had an opinion for this movie as well. I couldn't find a whole lot of things expressing her concerns, and apparently she took to social media to discuss it a couple of times, but I was unable to find it, sadly. And I was only able to find like secondary sources to that information. I have all of my resources down below, and so you can see what one of them were. What one of them was? What one of them were? I don't know. I digress. Obviously she heavily criticizes the film. She said it had nothing to do with her book. She said they took the characters' names, but other than that, it was a loose representation. She actually mentioned that she told the studio that fans did not want this movie. Fans wanted the second book of the series. So apparently this is a third book. Unfortunately, I have not read the Anne Rice books. Please don't come for me. And the story that she wanted them to do was more about Lestat, the story of Lestat. And they would not let her screenwrite this one because they wanted their own side story. This story that was their own, not someone else's work, but it was still someone else's work. I I don't understand. I don't understand when studios do that. When you have the writer, like, on hand, you obviously bought the rights to their stuff. Why not use their stuff if you bought the rights to it? Maybe somebody can let me know that. Maybe you can teach me a little something. Let me know in the comments below. So, unfortunately, she didn't like it. And apparently she said on her Facebook that they mutilated her work, and she asked fans to simply forget about the movie. Now, do I think the movie's great by any means? Absolutely not. I actually tried to watch it prior to talking about it, and I fell asleep. But I still have "I'm so cold" in my head. If you know, you know. Okay. Another funny, when it comes to Anne Rice, she talked about how she would receive letters asking her why she allowed the studio to do what they did to her work. And I couldn't find it, but I'm curious how many letters she actually got. Because there was so many casting members and musicians that enjoyed her books. And they were ecstatic to work on this film because of that. And so I often wonder what their thoughts were with the outcome of the movie as well. And like I said, it was kind of hard to find anything on this movie, and I find it was probably because it's such an underground, like, it's just one of those movies that we talk about it, those of us that enjoyed it and enjoyed the music in it, we talk about it, but are we watching it all the time? Probably not. Is it one of our favorite movies? Probably not. So I think that was the troublesome part of doing this and finding things to research. So I'm going to do the rest of my face off camera, and then we'll come back and wrap everything up. All right, now that that's done, let's get back to business. Let's wrap things up. So it sounded like everyone involved in the movie really enjoyed themselves, and they really enjoyed being with each other. Now, I mentioned briefly about how everyone adored Aaliyah, of course, but her counterpart, Stuart, said that he found that she was very kind and very genuine and kind of soft when working with her, and he found that this was kind of surprising. He mentioned in an interview that she had this persona that she allowed the public to see that was very, like, strong and independent and sexy, but when it came down to working with her for this movie, she was very genuine and very hardworking and soft and just almost a different person than what she allowed the public to see, and he felt very honored that he was able to see that side of her. Now, like I said, her brother was to do her dialogue for the movie, and he his only intention with doing so is to allow her legacy to be something that should be remembered in a certain way. And so he wanted her integrity to be intact. So her brother Rashad was very much on board in recording the dialogue and helping with anything that he could, because he knew what the film meant to Aaliyah. And the production crew actually mentioned that they were probably the closest family that they have ever known, and it felt very tight-knit with Aaliyah and her brother, not only her brother and her, but other family members as well. And the fact that she was able to act in this movie and do something she really wanted to do is so nice to hear, considering what had happened to her. And that was a nice thing for her family members to see. And they have that emotional attachment to this movie because of that. Some bonus things that I thought were pretty interesting when doing research. The American Humane Society actually certified the movie to no animals harmed. Now, when I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, so what are they talking about here? I was like, I don't remember animals being in the movie. And I thought it was kind of funny. The centipede in the opening scene that walks along the grave was actually CGI. And then they filmed seagulls in the background, and because they were filmed in their natural habitat, no animals were harmed. And the animal skin rugs were actually props obtained by the production crew for the movie. So, certified, no animals harmed in the making of this film. That was very cool. Another thing that I found out that I did not know, and I probably should when doing makeup, I have never really dabbled too much into FX makeup, but when the artist was adding the bites to Aaliyah, they had said that they do not match skin tone when adding wounds to an actor. And this is because if they were to match it to skin tone, the camera would pick up a yellow hue and it would look unnatural. So what they do is they actually add a red tint to the makeup when adding it to the actor, and then it comes off in a more natural way when filmed. Well, the more you know, right? But thank you again for hanging out with me. I kind of want to do Repo now. Now that we were talking about it, I kind of want to do Repo the Jenna Capra. Let me know down below if I should do it. But I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. Thank you for sticking out with me for yet another ramble of, I don't know, useless information maybe? But I hope to see you guys soon, and take care.